Hey there, it's Flobo Boys, and it's another episode of Flobo Saw It on Netflix. Basically, it's the after shows for the TV shows, specials, and movies that need after shows, and those are shows that I've currently exclusively seen on Netflix. When I have downtime between my other projects, I figure I just give you my thoughts about them. Somehow foster a discussion for some of the films and TV shows and comedy specials and documentaries. I mean, I get the much love as the other shows on that platform because to be honest with you, Netflix is a beast of a content house. There's a lot of stuff there. No one could weed through everything. I know I can, but I kind of came up with this idea through an instance of trying to make sure I get my money's worth every month. Today we're talking about the Charlize Theron film, The Old Guard. And before I even get into overall thoughts or what it was, I was on a ride. I did not know what the movie was. I try not to watch the trailers on Netflix because I guess I have this like aversion to the fact that auto plays. So when I log on the platform, I'm like, whatever, scroll, scroll, scroll. So usually I'll see like the show art or the character art and I'll say make a decision there. Or the trailer will play for about 3 or 5 seconds and I'll go, okay, I'll go for it. So in this case, it was a Sunday. Let me paint the picture. It was a Sunday. I was cleaning up my living room. I fired up Netflix, figure I would watch like Star Trek, Deep Space Nine or something, and I came across this movie, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna check it out. It looked like a cool tactical war film, and I was surprised. In fact, my first bit of notes on this film, I have it right here. I was going to talk about how we talked about this a little bit with the Project Power review. How there's a lot more A-list talent doing Netflix original movies. And on the surface, that used to be the death knell, right? Movie stars didn't do TV. Then came the era of peak TV and like HBO and Cinemax and Stars and such. And I guess more and more artists were okay with doing that. More and more actors were okay with doing that. But I was thinking about this. I'm going back to an interview that Billy Bob Thornton had back in 2010, I think, when the movie Faster came out. It was him, Carlo Gugino, and The Rock were in this like CBS film, revenge film called Faster. And they asked him why would he be in this low budget, relatively speaking, film. And he's like, well, as an actor, we're just so many superhero tentpole pieces. There's so many instances of talking to a green screen or interacting with balls and a stick in the world of CGI. Just having a movie where you can act with other actors in a room is kind of a blessing. And I think Netflix is filling in that role. You see, the old guard, you can tell there's some CGI, and I'll get to the reason why a little bit later. But a lot of it is basically buoyed by the strength of the acting performances of the group. Right, so before I go any further, like most episodes in this series, it requires spoilers upon spoilers upon spoilers. It's an after show. If you haven't seen The Old Guard, you should. I do recommend it just for this episode or just as a cool way to kill 2 hours. So what was interesting about that is seeing this film definitely not in the blockbuster price range, definitely more mid-budget. I would guess somewhere between the 20 and $40 million range. I don't know how much a movie costs. I'm not that guy, but I think that's the case. I think it was pretty cool having actors emote, having different skill levels as far as the craft work in different scenes. A lot of it was pretty cool. Definitely the character of Charlize Theron, who plays Andy, she sticks out. And Copley does stick out too. His character was pretty much one of the stronger performances, motivating as to why he's doing what he's doing, and it kind of flips flops. A lot of people kind of flip flops in these kind of movies because you really can't make someone evil forever or good forever, and the reason being is Immortals. What? This is a piece about Immortals. When I fired this up, I thought it would be strictly a tactical mercenary war film until they got shot down. And it turns out, bam, it's really about people who cannot die, which I thought was pretty clever. I thought it was a cool way to subvert the genres of the military film, the mercenary film, and the immortal type films and TV shows at the same time in a way that was fresh. It happened quick enough where you were able to be shocked. Like I feel like if it came in too late, it would have been like a cop out answer type of deal. But the fact that the conceit about them being immortals came out a little early, I thought was pretty awesome. In a lot of ways, it reminds me doing this in a better way than another Charlize Theron film, Hancock. Now, Hancock was a movie about superheroes. Featured Will Smith, which is a movie I actually enjoyed. But at about the 45-minute mark, it's turned out that they're not superheroes, but rather angels. And if the angels are far apart, they have all the superhuman powers. But if they're together, then they get to be mortal. And a lot of people kind of were like, ugh, yeah, I don't really feel that. It comes too late. The first movie was a movie. Why they add this on? So it was cool to see in the old guard that they made a point to say, hey, look, they're not just people who are mercenaries. It's not just a war film. These are individuals that cannot die and try to use their work for good or for evil or for whatever it serves them. You live long enough, you'll have a bunch of motivations. Now, I like the concept of that. There was a TV show, short lived, and it lasted 8 episodes, called New Amsterdam. Not to be confused with my podcast, New Amsterdam Radio with a K. Not to be confused with the medical drama on NBC, New Amsterdam. But there was a show on Fox called New Amsterdam, and it starred the guy that ended up being Ginny Lannister on Game of Thrones. He was basically a cop that was saved by a colonial medicine woman in New York, and he could not die until he found his true love. And so, in his current form, he was a cop on the New York City beat. I loved it. Stars Vika Robinson. I thought it had been the best show ever. Didn't last. What I'm saying is, this is right up my alley. I like war films. I like action films, and I also love conceits like time travel and with working with Immortals. And this one kind of plays with all of that, because when you talk about the reason why someone cannot die, we go back into the trials and tribulations that someone who cannot die has to deal with. Losing loved ones tends to be the major thing we've seen thematically in pieces like this. But we also saw, at least for me, new ways to torture people who cannot die. Like there was a scene where someone's pushed off the edge of a boat and they were locked in this box to live and die forever. And I just thought that, wow, one, that's really freaking clever. And two, man, that's pretty torturous at the same time. Human beings can be so cruel. But so the idea is them, trying to go about their lives, but they figure out there is a brand new member of the team, someone that was in the midst of helping someone out in a war-torn region of Afghanistan. They got sliced by the neck. And what was pretty cool too is that they can all dream about each other if they're too far apart. So there really is a bit of a society there of those who cannot die. And I'm getting kind of John Wick vibes, not by the action side of it, not by the assassin side of it, but there is enough of a foundation in this first one to really build a universe of those that we got lost along the way. Are there other ones? Are they rogue factions of people who cannot die? Which I thought was pretty awesome. Like a cool way to say, hey, look, if you want to go down the direction, if you want to do spin-offs, if you want to do sequels, we can. But the story here is all complete too, so you can be totally fine with it. You can be like, okay, I'm good. I'm right. And I think that's the best kind of franchises, like now with the whole risk averse ness of studios, it's very easy to have a movie and try to plant all the seeds for a sequel or a trilogy or a trilogy or a quadrilogy or what have you. But it's really cool to see a movie that is told and that in one way can be self-contained, but there is another element or another character reintroduction that makes you go, okay, cool. I'm down for a second one or a third one. I felt the same way about Bright, the Will Smith movie on Netflix. Like, okay, this is a cool story, but if you want to build some more worlds, you want to tell me more about the elves or whatever, we totally can. Let's talk about things that were the most challenging for me. It's about 2 hours in length. I do think it could have been a little bit quicker. I'm not sure if it's a objective time, as in it needs to be like an hour and 45 minutes, or more of a subjective time, and that maybe there should have been another action scene or a little bit more of a pick up a pace or a punch up or whatever. What is pretty, even though the direction's great, the cinematography's great, the music choices are a little bit ham-fisted but good. One of the biggest thing I did not quite enjoy was the dialogue. The dialogue exchanges, to the credit of the screenwriters, there's a lot of information you got to get across. You got to get across the stakes now. The stakes, if you don't get these things, the race against the clock, as it were, the mythology of this high concept, the tactical nature of this team. So I understand the heavy load the dialogue has to carry. I bet if I was in the writer's room, I probably wouldn't have done a good a job as this. But there were some instances where the dialogue made you go, "Oh, that's a lot of information in one line. That's a lot of content. That's a lot of exposition. Okay, it's someone's trying to be a certain character, be someone's trying to be badass, but doesn't quite hit the same way." And that's okay. I think in these kind of films, again, these minimal budget, these at home streaming direct, there is a lower bar to clear. Again, not to denigrate anyone who makes screenwriting in their craft, but there's more margin for error, I should say. That said, though, that scene where they were in the pickup truck and the armored guards like the tease the two characters like, "Oh, is that your boyfriend?" And there was this huge like poetic romantic vibe where it was like, "No, my I still shiver when I received his kiss after a millennial." I was like, "Oh, it's so cute. He's not my boyfriend. He's my lover and more." To me, that was like a really cool bright spot. And also Merrick, the main villain, the main guy, understandably why he's a villain. He wants to make sure that he can extract this immortality gene or instance or mutation to replicate, but played a little bit over the top. I feel it was a little bit too much of a Lex Luthor than anything else. No, I take that back. I think we wanted more Lex Luthor. This is a little bit too much of the Joker. This is more of this has to be the case. This has to be the way. My competitors cannot see me lose. But if it took a time to maybe do a little more what Copley was and say, "No, I'm evil to you guys, but I'm actually the good guy. I really want people to share this power of immortality. Let me show you these videos of communities that helped out because doctors or shaman or presidents were able to live longer to help their communities, or maybe there was somebody who was the best craftsperson at making paintings, got to live longer to share his art or teach his art to new generations." Like if they showed the positives of torturing immortals to get their information, I think it would be a lot cooler of a discussion about the nature of living and wanting to die and being mortal. As it's presented right now, he is kind of evil for evil's sake. Like, yes, I want to be this symbol of big pharma and extract things from people so I can have the most money. And that's cool. It gets the point across. You want to see him lose. You want to see him get his comeuppance, which I guess is the nature of a villain. But I really think there was something a little bit more as far as what the humanity of it all, much of our desire to for life, how we as mortals take it for granted until we see something where it's not. When you're immortal, as we saw that team, every time they took a gunshot or a stab, it was like, "Oh, stop doing that," But over time, especially in Andy's case, especially in Charlize Theron's character's case, where she was starting to bleed, it was like, "Oh, okay. Now, we're not immortals, but that's us too. We're young. We jump off things. We don't care about tearing a PCL or an MCL when we're 9 years old." But I can tell you at my age, there's times I'll wake up in the morning like, "Oh, man, I'm feeling that one. Oh, what was I doing?" So the film does a good job about that. Overall, it's the perfect, I don't want to say 90s film, because I think that puts it to a whole different category. But it reminds me of the time growing up watching movies and TV shows in Saturday or Sunday afternoons, where you either went to church and came back home, or you finished cleaning up the apartment or the house and you're just chilling out waiting for Saturday night festivities to start. You put on a flick, and it's usually like a western or a kung fu flick. Like, this is the kind of film that make you go, "Oh, okay, it's cool. It was a cool 2 hours, something to think about, but nothing to like go to a party about and be like, 'Bro, have you seen the old guard, bro?'" I haven't quite got there yet, but I do think it's worth watching. If I had to give it a score, I will say it's 6.0 out of 10. So check it out if you have the chance. It's called The Old Guard. Came out this year on the Netflix platform. And again, it's definitely a cool way to spend 2 hours just to sit down with a tub of popcorn or a nice cold one after doing the work. Written by Screenplay and novel by Greg Rucka, who's a fantastic comic book writer and story person. If you haven't checked it out, you should. This is Flobo, saw it on Netflix, The Old Guard. I'll be back next time. Granted, we're going to have some more fun, talk about more content on the big black and red platform, and have a good time. Thank you so much for checking this out and all the other episodes out. Remember, patrons get this content a couple weeks earlier than everyone else. So if you want to get early access to Flobo Saw on Netflix, make sure you check out the Patreon, patreon.com/Flobo Boys. Join the boisterous crew. That's what we're calling everyone who rolls with the homie. You'll get access to Flobo Saw on Netflix 2 weeks before anyone else. And if you want to support the homie elsewhere, buy a t-shirt over at flobito.threadless.com. That's flobito.threadless.com. T-shirts, mugs, face masks, all that thing. Support the What's Up Flobo show, DJ Flobito's content and merchandise, and the new Amsterdam radio podcast over at flobito.threadless.com. Thank you so much